Okay. Enough of them. Thanks everybody for coming here. I know I really appreciate it, and Isaac appreciates it, and our whole family appreciates each and every one of you. I'm going to talk a little bit about what I was doing over the last 5 months. I'm sure any one of you could come up here and give a speech about the last 5 months or even this year. I think has been an exciting and interesting, and maybe not what we expected year for us all. I remember about a month ago, I went to the Polyface store after dinner to catch some Wi-Fi, and I just scrolled through Facebook a little bit, and it looks like fire and desolation. Many of you guys here were posting pictures. It looked like fire and desolation everywhere. It looked like the great dragon smog had flown through and burned down our towns and our villages while I was gone. Um, you all seem pretty chill about it, like sitting in your offices with your coffee, just walking on the porch, taking pictures, and it's like I'm thinking like you guys all need to flee to the hills. It looks like the Lord is coming back. Like the Lord is coming back. You need to flee the left coast. I mean the west coast. But no, actually, yeah, right. I do remember thinking of all of y'all and everybody's safety. And I remember one evening we were about to eat dinner. We were all gathering outside in the pavilion. And it'd been kind of hazy that whole day, like hazy and cloudy. And Joel Salatin pointed out that it was in the news that it was smoke that had drifted all the way from the west coast, practically all the way to the east coast. And I was like, wow, that's my family. That must be bad. But I'm glad to see I come back here and everything's crisp and clean. Um, uh, But you're probably hoping I get on with the speech. You're tired of hearing about fire. So I'm going to start with this quote by Wendell Berry. He says, "Don't own so much clutter that you will be relieved to see your house catch fire." Oh, drats. That's the wrong quote. Sorry. he says, "Good farmers who take seriously their duties as stewards of creation and of their land's inheritors contribute to the welfare of society in more ways than society usually acknowledges or even knows. These farmers produce valuable goods, of course, but they also conserve soil, they conserve water, they conserve wildlife, they conserve open space, they conserve scenery." And you can put the first slide up. For the last 5 months, I was a steward, and they changed the name for the first time from intern to steward. I was a steward at Polyface Farms, where they try to do all of the things I just listed here. The farm is known mainly through its founder of sorts, Joel Salatin, and his books. I remember, I should say his son Daniel Salatin is the main one who runs the farm now. Joel Salatin does a lot more of speaking and conferences and whatnot. Their main products are beef, pork, chicken, turkey, rabbit, sheep, and eggs. I remember hearing of Polyface in my early teens, and even then I remember being enthralled with this style of farming. I remember reading a lot of his books, and I tried to emulate a lot of his practices with broilers, which someone asked, broiler is just a meat chicken, a chicken for meat. I tried to emulate his practices with meat, with chickens and with pigs and with layers. So last year, I applied for this internship, and the 90 other people applied. So out of the 90 people, 40 people were invited to come over for what they call 2-day checkouts. So over a 2-week period, every applicant of the 40 gets 2 days where they work alongside of the staff and the Salatins, and that is their way of vetting us. So that was last October. So I'm not a really in-your-face type of person. I just try to work hard, and if I was asked a question, give a thoughtful answer. But I didn't really think I was going to get chosen. I was just like, oh, this is cool. I get to see Polyface. I've always wanted to see this place. And maybe I had an unfair advantage because I was one of the last people over the 2 weeks. Everyone had a chance to have dinner with Daniel Salatin and then with Joel Salatin, usually in groups in 4 and 5, but since I was one of the last ones, it was literally just me, Joel Salatin, his wife, and one of the staff. So maybe I had an unfair advantage there. The world will never know. But in November, I was notified that I'd been accepted along with 10 other young men and women from around the United States. And, it seemed fast. I was a little unsure. Like, I'd only met them over this 2-day period. But on the flip side, they had only met us over 2 days. And we were literally from all across the country. So, it was an even amount of trust that we would have to build over this 5 months. From the beginning, I knew I wanted to drive and see a lot of the country. So me, my dad, brother Isaac, and Abigail, we all drove out there. You can do the first slide or next slide, Chris. We actually dropped Abigail off in Kentucky and then to see some friends, and then we kept driving. So my brother and my dad got to see Joel Salatin and see a little bit of Polyface Farms. I truly believe that Polyface, especially now, is something that you can't really explain. That's why I had the slideshow going on earlier, so you could see pictures of what we're doing. But it was a magical place to spend a summer, and I do hope to go back there and visit often. But I do tend to rely on photos a lot, so you can get the idea of what Polyface is and tries to do. Many of you, it was the year 2020, might wonder, did COVID affect us at all? And the answer to that is not at all. And I'm actually grateful that I was an intern in this year, 2020, as opposed to any other year, because what better time than 2020 to be living and working and learning on a farm, literally untroubled by the outside world. We were kind of in our own little bubble. It was kind of nice. Joel Salatin is a little old-fashioned, which sometimes gets him into trouble, and he's less a proponent of closing churches and not shaking hands and spraying chemicals everywhere, and he's more of a believer in what he calls the microbiome, which is a healthy gut, and having an immune system that's been willingly exposed to different things that help build it and get it stronger so that it's strong enough, generally speaking, to fight off as many problems as possible on its own. So we interns, we showed up there in the beginning of May, and we were basically stranded. We didn't know anyone. We didn't know each other. We hardly knew where we were, and we didn't know anything. But we had several advantages in this way. You can do the next slide, Chris. One, we were unplugged. We had no internet in any of our lodging areas, which was actually, we found quite a blessing. Two, we were undistracted. All we had to do was work and to learn. Every once in a while, we might, go out to town to go to church or to buy groceries. Other than that, we were always on the farm. And then third, we had great teaching. John Quincy Adams says, if your actions inspire others to dream more, learn more, do more, and become more, you are a leader. Next slide. And I truly believe all of our teachers in this way were leaders. They were open, honest. All they asked from us was that we gave them our best. They challenged us and pushed us every day to be better than the day before. None of them were perfect, but I truly believe they were all leaders in that sense of the term. Then we had great company, which is something I'll definitely miss, is that all of us interns had this in common, that we loved farming, and we wanted to do farming. And not just farming, but this style of farming that had been popularized by Joel Salatin. Some of us had read his books, some of us had heard his podcasts, some of us, had heard from other people, but we all had it in common that we wanted to do this style of farming. So we'd have great discussions about it, and sometimes disagreement. Sometimes we'd literally have good arguments and debates about how we would do certain things, but it was always great because we're all interested in the same types of things. Some of my fellow interns, their families weren't supportive of them going to this internship, or they didn't understand what it was. They're like, so are you doing grain? Or are you doing corn? Or like, what is it? It's like, no, I'm not doing it. It's a different style of farming. You can do the next slide, Chris. Then we had great opportunities. We had between tours to processing facilities, feed mills, dairies, and the like, and then our many lunatic tours for the public, and our more focused Polyface intensive discovery seminars. All of these work to expose us to different people, concepts, and ideas from around the country in a short amount of time. Not to mention, Joel had many friends in high places that would sometimes come and visit the farm. Off the top of my head, the former CEO of Chipotle came and visited once, and they would speak to us as well as past interns and apprentices who would give us updates on what was going on since they left Polyface. We all realize food is something we all have in common. I really realized this with the events that Polyface put on. It brings people together. Polyface does a great job of that. Conservatives, liberals, straight-laced Mennonites, and Amish to tattooed, flip-flop wearing hippies, people from the health community, soccer moms, blacks, whites, Hispanics, you name it. People with special diets, people who just eat meat, people who just love having a good roast chicken, so many different people. Homeschoolers, gym enthusiasts, country people, city people, all would show up to these events. And occasionally would get people from other states with massive farms of their own who had heard about Polyface, and they realized that a lot of the practices they were doing weren't sustainable, and they wanted to switch to a style of farming similar to Polyface. So that was always exciting. I truly believe that if people continue to accept this style of farming, and if governments would turn their back on subsidizing industrial models, this local system of agriculture can take America by storm, and we can be the healthiest people on the planet. For me, it was the perfect summer at the perfect time. Every day we were learning the practical aspects of farming, moving chickens, moving cows, moving turkeys, moving pigs, building feeders, corrals, corral gates, sheds, making hay, driving tractors, pulling and backing up trailers, butchering chickens, butchering hogs, building, repairing shelters, and so much more. There was never a dull moment. As Daniel Salatin would say, the days were long, but the weeks were short. And we were building characters. We learned to bond as a group and be an efficient team. There were some bumps and rough spots along the way, but as a group, and especially apparently compared to past groups, we really excelled in the treatment of one another despite having differences of background and expectations, and it made the summer truly enjoyable. You can pull the next slide, Chris. One example of this was when our USDA processor temporarily shut down. So at Polyface, we would butcher chickens once, sometimes twice a week. We would do the state limit that you can do without inspection, which is in Virginia, 20,000. Here in Oregon, it's 1,000, but in Virginia, it's 20,000. So they would do that limit, and then the rest they would send to a USDA processor, which those ones could be sent across state lines. Anyway, our USDA processor shut down temporarily, so we had tons of chickens in the field that were ready to be processed. So we did 801 chickens in one day to fill the void, far surpassing any previous records by previous intern groups. Usually a normal day is 400, 500, 600 chickens. And we were done in time for lunch. As Daniel Saladin says, you're always done in time for lunch. Next slide, Chris. We all learned the importance of knowing where your food comes from and having a connection to your food. All the meat we ate was our own, all the eggs we ate were our own, all the milk we drank came from a dairy owned by a former Polyface apprentice. And we felt good, we felt healthy pretty much all the time, and I can say I truly never felt better. Next slide, Chris. The last couple weeks, though, were kind of bittersweet for us all, as the reality dawned on us that we would soon be leaving and parting to go our different ways. Four would stay on for another year, and the rest of us would go back to our respective states, as they say, as sheep amongst wolves. Grace and Jacob came over and helped they flew over, and they were going to drive back with me, and they kind of helped ease the changing of the season and get me excited to come home. It was a long drive home, made longer by the fact that we drove up to New Jersey to see my great-grandma and some of my family on my mom's side. My uncle gave us a drive-by tour of sorts of New York City, so that was pretty exciting. Next slide, Chris. And then we drove down, we stopped in Kentucky to see some friends there. We saw the Ark Encounter, so if you haven't been there, you should definitely go there. It's definitely worth it. It was amazing. So now that I've done this internship, a lot of you have been asking me and probably wondering, What's next? What's next? And the answer to that is I think we're going to have dessert next. I've been eyeing a lot of the stuff. No. The intent is to continue pursuing farming and educating myself and producing food in a way that heals people and the environment. Maybe that means doing my own thing. Maybe that means helping someone else or a combination of the two. And maybe it means, I don't know, like maybe moving to another state where the laws and whatnot, where there's more liberty to do this type of small-scale farming. Though I'd hate to leave you all. But I don't know. All my business ideas so far here have been illegal. Hence Joel Salatin's book, that one of his books is called Everything I Want to Do is Illegal. But I learned a lot at Polyface, but it wasn't all nuts and bolts. It was a different culture, different lifestyle that I found to be healthy, colorful, and vibrant. And the liberty to live this way is fading away in our country, though I think the desire to live this way is stronger than ever. My suggestion to you all is don't let anyone tell you how to live, what you can and can't do, how things should and shouldn't be. Figure out for yourself what works. And do the unconventional thing. Take the road less traveled. Explore, experiment. Learn from people in the past instead of relying just on what is mainstream in the present. Polyface thrives because it likes to do things outside the box. So I urge you all to do the same. Next slide. This poem is by Wendell Berry. He says, "Love the quick profit, the annual raise, vacation with pay. Want more of everything ready-made. Be afraid to know your neighbors and to die. And you will have a window in your head. Not even your future will be a mystery anymore. Your mind will be punched in a card and shut away in a little drawer." When they want you to buy something, they will call you. When they want you to die for profit, they will let you know. So friends, every day do something that won't compute. Love the Lord, love the world, work for nothing, take all that you have and be poured. Love someone who does not deserve it. Denounce the government and embrace the flag. Hope to live in that free republic for which it stands. Give your approval to all you cannot understand. Praise ignorance, for what man has not encountered, he has not yet destroyed. Ask the questions that have no answers. Invest in the millennium, plant sequoias. Say that your main crop is the forest that you did not plant and that you will not live to harvest. Say that the leaves are harvested when they have rotted into the mold. Call that profit. Prophesy such returns. Put your faith in the 2 inches of humus that will build under the trees every 1,000 years. Listen to carrion, put your ear close and hear the faint chattering of the songs that are to come. Expect the end of the world. Laugh. Laughter is immeasurable. Be joyful, though you have considered all the facts. So long as women do not go cheap for power, please women more than men. Ask yourself, would this satisfy a woman satisfied to bear a child? Would this disturb the sleep of a woman near to giving birth? Go with your love to the fields. Lie down in the shade. Rest your head in her lap. Swear allegiance to what is nighest your thoughts. As soon as the generals and the politicos can predict the motions of your mind, lose it. Leave it as a sign to mark the false trail, the way you didn't go. Be like the fox, who makes more tracks than necessary, some in the wrong direction. Practice resurrection. Thank you.